Hello and welcome everybody to Around the Battleground. My name is LHS and I'm your host, and joining me, as always for the past 2 weeks, is Culture. How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. How about you, my man? And staying
I
cool
am
this
doing all
summer?
right. It was 70 degrees here today. I want
I
you
hate you.
to, yeah.
I hate you.
I got to enjoy the cool breeze. It was nice. I had the windows open. There was a nice little sprinkle shower of rain. It was really nice. It was really therapeutic just to have that nice weather. How is it where you are?
Georgia, it's sweltering hot. We're hitting mid-90s right now. Things are melting. I'm not saying you could fry an egg on the ground, but it's terribly uncomfortable. My car has no AC, so going outside, just driving around is awful. I did go fishing today. It was, or not yet today, yesterday. It was absolutely perfect fishing weather. But besides that, it's just terrible. I hate Georgia. It's too hot, humid. I wish God would just reach his hand down and change the weather, or just destroy the state and replace it with something better. Like maybe a mix of like Canada and a mix of Canada and Florida would be great. You know, I think
I
that
don't
would
even know
work
what that
out.
Canada, Florida. Those are like on the wheel chart, the color wheel. They're like exact opposites. I think you just nailed like Florida is the polar opposite of Canada.
I
Wow.
think the perfect. I think what I'm talking about is California, and the fact that it's that's never mind. Nope, because California gets hot as hell too. So I no, you're right.
If
It would be
you're
hard to
at the
do, but
coast
science
though,
has done it before.
California around the coast is pretty chill all year round.
Yeah.
Uh yeah, so but I could say the the northwest, the Pacific Northwest is a
Yes.
good place to be. Florida, Canada. I'm still kind of trying to picture like a Floridian Canadian. Like Florida man,
Oof.
but who would apologize after eating your face, I guess.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Is
They'd
that
be
what that would be?
crazy. They do something stupid. They fight an alligator, but then afterwards, like, I'm so sorry. I'm so
I'm so
sorry
sorry.
for doing that.
Perfect. I like it. I want like an animated series of Florida Canada man. That sounds great.
Florida,
So
Canadian Floridian, the
yeah,
series.
oh boy. So we're getting close to the end of the first phase of the year. We're closing in on mid-season invitational. We've got what, a couple more weeks. This will be, well, let's check the schedule here. This will be week 11 and we only have 13 weeks. So we're getting real close to that MSI. We've had some qualifiers. I think all of the qualifiers are pretty much wrapped up in everything but the SPL, and the SPL could shift around a little bit. So we'll start the show off talking about the minor league, and who better to talk about the minor league than our minor co-host,
Wow.
Mr. Culture.
Wow.
Why don't you take the
Was that
reins?
even
And
necessary?
yeah, it wasn't,
Well,
but it made me feel good.
okay. Whatever makes you feel good, buddy. Whatever makes you feel good. But I mean, SML this week, I want to say it was pretty standard. EU was pretty standard. Simplicity versus Team Queso was the first series. It was a 2-0. And I mean, Simplicity did Simplicity things. Game one, everybody was on fire. There really was no chance for Team Queso for minute one. And then game two, I think the only reason it was close in my mind was because Team Queso threw that curveball, putting Warchi on the mid Susano, and that threw off Simplicity just a little bit. But besides that, it was business as usual. They recovered well from it and still took the series. I don't know. What were your thoughts on those games? Because I just thought it's what a 1 seed versus a 4 seed should have looked like.
Yeah, I think walking into this, Simplicity was probably the favorite to win. Queso though has it in them to find this victory. Game one kind of goes straight to Simplicity, but game two, Queso has the weird draft, and I honestly really liked their draft. It was weird. It threw the other team off. The Sasano mid ended up working pretty well in a lot of spots for them, and they got a lot of value out of it. And so I liked what I saw, and honestly want to see them kind of do more of that and kind of define their style as not playing what everybody else is playing. I think there's a lot of value in that sort of style and mentality. And Queso has tried it with a few things and it hasn't really worked, but I don't think that should discourage them. I think the SML could use a team like that, that curveball. And if they really just build their brand, their reputation around doing stuff like that, and they try more stuff out and make it work, I think they might, end up not as the fourth place team. Simplicity, though, to their credit, they started it off pretty slow and weak, and then all of a sudden they've kind of caught fire. I think Fails has been one of the outstanding members of the squad. He's had a couple dumb moments, but it wouldn't be a Danny season if he didn't have some brain dead moments in the jungle role. But apart from those like here or there, he's been really consistent, really knocking it down. Kind of making a case for he could be in the SPL at this point. I mean, he's been in the SPL before and he had a down season last year, but I think he's kind of getting back into a groove. And, I'm not saying there's anybody in particular he could replace, but I definitely think that he's showing off that, he's still an SPL caliber jungle right now. And then obviously Maniac in the solo, it just really fits his style right now, just pressing W, face checking people, being able to do whatever he wants and be a bully. And Osiris is back in the meta. What more could you want for Maniac? Everything's kind of just breaking their way. I kind of expect a lot of big things from not out cold, but from Simplicity going into MSI, because I think after they've qualified as the number one seed, there's nobody else can touch them. They are the number one team to close out for SML, right?
Yeah, they should be pretty much done and dusted. I mean, 9-3, 8-4 between them and Flashpoint, but I think that they have the tiebreaker anyways, so it should be pretty much wrapped up going into it.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. This was the final phase, the game of this phase for the SML.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
Oh,
so,
okay. Right.
Simplicity finished first. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we got
I got a little bit confused.
Yeah. And then second set for EU of the day was what? Out Cold and
Flashpoint.
Flashpoint, right?
Yeah. It was
it
was the money match, if you will. And I just think that Flashpoint had a really, really good day, especially out of Ferrocrick and Johnny. Honestly, in a series they have, if you're looking at the slash odds KDAs, Ferrocrick went 11.25 in his KDA this entire series, and then Johnny was right behind him at 7.5. And then there's no one else close to them in the entire series. And Out Cold played it close, but I just think when you have two players playing on that level, there's really not much you can do. You can try and shut them down, but in a game like Smite, when someone gets rolling up like that, it's not as team-oriented yet as some other MOBAs, and it's just way too hard to shut them down as long as Flashpoint played through them, and they did. The Caspana 5, Fuse 5, they're like, we don't have to do much. We just have to make sure not to give up any leads in a dual lane, and we can get carried through this, and that's what happened. So if you're Out Cold, I wouldn't feel too bad. You just got beat by two people that were having a very, very good week, and you just got to go back to the drawing board for the next phase, really. I mean, what else can he do?
Yeah, Flashpoint, we've been talking about them all season. They've been doing really well. And they last week or week before last, I forget where it was, but they kind of stumbled. They dropped a set and they really shouldn't have. Then we wondered if they were going to pull the Flashpoint. This is a squad that has, consistently stumbled at the end of splits and everything. When the lights were the brightest, they kind of crumbled under the pressure. So hoping that they didn't do that. And this season, the split, they have rose to the occasion. They 2-0'd Out Cold, and Out Cold was having a bit of resurgence. But at the end of the day, they just weren't able to put away Flashpoint, and Flashpoint dug deep and put them away. And I'm really proud of the squad. The only thing that makes it kind of bittersweet is the fact that squad, being Eastern European, is having problems getting all their visa stuff secured. And I think they've already said that one of their members is not going to be able to make it, and they were trying to crowdfund basically the funds to get people visas and be able to make it to mid-season invitational. So I don't know what this squad and roster is going to look like at mid-season, but it's not going to involve the whole team. I think Farrakrick or Caspanify or Fusify, one of those guys is not going to be going. I think it's Fusify or Caspanify. I can't remember which.
I have
Uh,
to think it's fair because I remember if I was reading the Twitter feeds correct. I think Johnny said that he had crowdfunded the money to get Fusify and Caspanify there.
yeah,
So
actually,
I
so it
have to think
was
it'd be fair.
Fusify. Yeah, so
Oh,
they were
okay.
trying to collect money for Fusify and Caspanify to go. They actually hit the goal in one day. So actually, maybe this whole team is going to go. I really hope they do. I think they could do a lot of big things. Uh, Having these guys not all kind of be there would be a kind of a travesty. So I'm glad to see the community kind of come together and get these guys the money and the funds to come. That's a really heartwarming moment, really, and I hope that gets kind of broadcasted by the greater Smite community on the Reddit, by Skillshot itself, by Hi-Rez, whatever. Everything that needs to be amplified. This is our community. That needs to be the face, not all like DM Brandon versus Duke Sloth versus Incon versus Weekend bullshit. Like that's not what we need the face of our community to be. Um,
Yeah.
so we got
I mean,
Flashpoint going, we've got Simplicity going, uh, EU kind of wrapping up, kind of honestly the way we thought it would. Not at the beginning of the season, really thinking that Simplicity and Out Cold would be the two teams, but Flashpoint really came in and kind of dominated and has since, kept one of their top spots. They fell to number 2 after a late season push from Simplicity, but still finishing that top 2 where we thought they would. And then going over to the other side of the pond, we got NA looking at, basically the same standings we've been looking at. Armada sitting pretty. The biggest surprise this week was Sanguine versus Cryptic. And after having weeks of dominant performances, Sanguine just can't do it. After almost 2-0ing Armada last week, they lose to Cryptic. What do you make of this?
I honestly, it had the feeling that Sanguine, first of all, mistakes again for them, but it really was in the root. It felt like they were kind of looking beyond Team Cryptic. If you even look at the draft, I mean, both games that Team Cryptic won, Coat Baby got his Hercules and it went through. After the first time he got Hercules, he went 6-0-8 and destroyed Sanguine, and they let it back through. And then they tried basically the same thing that lost them the game with the Hercules, which was trying to invade on blue buff, as usual with Yarkor and Panatome, and getting completely shit on because Team Cryptic was reading them like a book. And collectively, they didn't look good, but really it was just their early game, which is really where they roll and kind of get their leads to win games, just wasn't there. When that wasn't there, at the end of the day, I mean, the highest person for this series was Shinto as far as like numbers, 2.21, but he can't do it all. And I won't take anything away from Cryptic though. Besides, Coat Baby Mineral had a good series. Zero in the Jungle played well. The Cryptic showed up to play, and Sanguine just really didn't. They looked like they were looking beyond Cryptic toward MSI already because they knew they already had their spot locked up and wasn't really trying to play that hard. And this is where this 2-1 comes from. If I look at it, I don't know about you.
Yeah, I don't know. The Cryptic has kind of gone up and down throughout the season, and it's hard to really uh put a finger on what they're doing. They've had, Cope going from the jungle to solo and everything. They had roster changes with, I think, Benny left the squad, right? At some point, yeah.
Yeah.
So not really knowing what's going to happen, like adding in Diesel, and that kind of changes your dynamic. But with the changes, they've gotten better over the season. They had the dip, and then they've made changes, and it looks like they're coming out the other end. So this Cryptic squad isn't, a pushover by far. At the start of the season, we really had a difficult time saying which was going to be better, Cryptic or Sanguine. Sanguine looked like they were going to be, unquestionably the number 2 team. They kind of stumble at the end here, with the loss to Cryptic, but just last week they almost 2-0 Armada. So got to work on that consistency from Sanguine. These players have the talent in them, but they don't have the experience and they haven't grown enough to like put these bad days behind them and be able to like handle as much as adversity as they should be able to. But I don't think this is, I don't think this raises any red flags at this point that they're just going to go and feed their brains out at the MSI. I think there's still a lot of hope and potential with the squad moving on to the next part of the season. What
Oh
I
yeah,
do
for
want to
sure.
focus on the other side, though, with Armada, is somebody was mysteriously absent from their roster this week. Instead
Oh,
of Baskin being over in that solo lane, it was Solo or Troll. And that sends a lot of questions through my mind, especially after last week where we saw, last week or the week before last or whenever it was, we saw Scream leave the SML to go up into the big leagues. And there were rumblings maybe that we'd see Baskin do the same because he's also, his reasons for not going were college as well. And he could come out and do that now. So Baskin not being on the Armada squad, is this a precursor to a roster move for Baskin? I don't know. I personally can't say. But I mean, if we look across the landscape, right? Is there a need for a solo laner anywhere, right? You
Space
look
Station
at
Gaming.
what you're gonna get a lot of shit for that statement, my friend. Baskin on Space Station Gaming solo to replace Aquarius. That's
I mean,
a
what do you
bold
think?
statement. That's a bold statement even for me. I don't. So
I'm just trying to think.
I don't think you could. I don't. So Baskin on Space Station has already happened once and it didn't work. It's a different situation with him going from he was in mid on that team and then going into solo. I don't think that team gets rid of Aquarius. He's got a lot of talent. That kid's really good at the game. They've like won off of his back. I don't think you can look at that and do Baskin. However, that would be a very SSG move to put the old vet on the team. So I wouldn't rule it out 100%. I just don't think it's that likely. I don't know. You saying that, and I hate the idea, but it's also like that would be the most SSG thing to do.
I mean, because I'm just sitting here thinking, what other team? I doubt Baskin would want to, unless the money was there and right. We want to go to maybe like an LG or Trifecta, a team that doesn't seem. It's more than just one position. Him inserting it to make it better. So I think with Sinnoh joining, I don't see any other of the top teams needing a solo laner immediately. I mean, unless maybe Splyce and they replace Divios, but you don't replace Divios, right? So in my mind, nothing else sparks the mind. Right. Nothing else sparks the mind.
They just got Sino just left because what we're assuming, toxic team environment. Well, Mr. Baby Rage himself, that's probably where that's coming from. So that's Splyce is probably sticking with Divios at this point. If they're letting Sino walk, there's no way after he's leaving now they're kicking him for somebody else. I don't know. I don't see that. That'd be a really weird move. You know what I'm saying? Like you let you let the finals MVP walk for the guy because you don't get rid of the guy who's having problems with, and then you let that guy go. That seems like really bad management. I don't know. I don't see that happen. I think Divios is probably the guy there. I don't know. LG. I think Trifecta would be an interesting spot for him if I'm being honest, just because that's a squad that has a lot of potential, but is having problems out of Lazarus is having trouble adjusting to that mid role a little bit. He's dying to some basic things though. His pathing, his decision making in that regards, positioning as a whole, it's not great, and that kind of transcends the mid role itself. That's some kind of more basic, mental mechanic. Ducky hasn't been the greatest solo laner. He hasn't been the worst either. I think he's had some pretty good performances. He's just been fucked by King Arthur week in and week out. You add Baskin to that roster, that's scary. With as much focus as there is in the solo lane right now, and with Weekend being one of the predominant like solo focused junglers, and with how good Weekend's been playing this year, that could be a really intriguing landing spot if, in fact, Baskin is going to go to the SPI. So I think uh, LG, obviously, Zalia for Baskin, but you know they're more down the ladder, right? I don't think we can. Baskin wants to win. He wants to
nothing to look
10.
forward to. Yeah.
Right.
So
So if you're
let
looking
me
at
ask you
the
this.
squad,
Let me ask you this, because if he were to go to trifecta, would he go mid? Because there have been rumors, because if you've been watching Lasber stream, he's been spamming jungle, right? So do you think maybe he's doing that just for stream entertainment, or is he practicing because they might move Baskin back to mid, him to jungle, and keep Ducky? Like, if he were to go to trifecta, where would Baskin slot in? Would he just be Ducky for him? Because honestly, I'm with you. I don't think
solo.
a lot of Ducky's problems are his fault.
I think so. I don't think at this stage you can kick Weekend off of that team because of the performance he's had so far this year. He is the reason they have been in games a lot of the time. We're not saying Wowie's name. We're not saying Eonic's name. We're not saying Lasber's name, and we're not saying Ducky's name, right? Like it's the Weekend show over there. So if you're going to replace somebody, I mean, they very well could. So Weekend historically goes through when it is an aggressive dive based meta, and those are the gods in style. Weekend flourishes. He has really good performances, but inevitably we will run into tankier jungles. And that is kind of where Weekend has struggled a little bit. It's not his forte. It's not what he sells at. And so if you are trifecta and you know this pattern with Weekend happens, where he has really good starts, but he doesn't have the greatest finishes, you could look ahead, maybe make a change. You look at, moving Lasber over to jungle, bringing Baskin mid. I don't know. That sounds really risky, and you're alienating, currently the best player on the team. I don't see it happening, especially just because at the end of the day, Baskin doesn't stream as much as Weekend does. So I don't think you get rid of him off of your team when he's the best person on your team, like from a skill point of view, but then also from a bringing eyeballs onto the team point of view, right? So I think it's really interesting you bring up, Baskin mid. Other teams who need a mid, maybe Baskin comes back. I don't know. Again, you look at LG with Baskin mid and Zalia solo
Space
still.
Station.
Space they just moved Andy mid though. I don't see them doing that. That would be real. I would also be right up there with Splyce, getting rid of Divios for him. That would just be a real questionable move. Oh yeah,
I'm just saying he's got to go somewhere.
Believe it.
I'm saying he's got to go somewhere.
Go somewhere, right?
United, team rival, Dig, Pittsburgh, all the top 16 SK. I think they're all just comfortable with their rosters. I mean, maybe SK, but again, where did he go? Everyone on SK
could be a really interesting option. SK with Baskin would be really dangerous and scary. I mean, they already are taking games off of teams and looking really strong, but adding Baskin into that solo lane would really be something special. That could be the best spot over Belair 100%. Belair has had a great performance. He's done well, but he's not Baskin. Baskin in the solo lane is ridiculous. The mechanical god, and with the meta being you can play whatever you want, Baskin's just going to style on people. I don't know. Baskin to SK I like that a lot. I'm being honest.
I mean, and even honestly, like if you think about it even deeper, maybe you could put him even mid because Paul has struggled a little bit. A little bit.
No,
if you're talking
you
about
absolutely can't
no,
move Paul off of this team. You'd be run out the
I'm just
SPL if
throwing
you got rid
theories
of
out.
Paul.
I'm just throwing
No,
theories out.
Paul is not going anywhere. This is the Smite Paul League, friend. I know you're here, but you better recognize the gospel that is Paul.
Hey, listen,
Get out
as
of
an
here.
analyst, objectively, I have to throw out the possibility because when you watch SK play, I'm gonna ask you this: when you watch SK play, where do you think most of their issues come from when they don't win, when they don't succeed? Where are most of their issues coming out of? Objectively, I just want because that would probably, if he was to go to SK, where he'd go. Really, Zapman?
Yes. Zapman being too aggressive. Zapman playing Nuwa ADC. When SK don't perform, I mean, so to be fair, Paul came out of the gates slow, but he came out slow for Paul. Whereas we were saying Paul is going to be the best player in the world last year. He's going to be the best mid laner in the world. Maybe the best player. And then he kind of, instead of going 18-0, he would go 12-3. Like that's the difference that we're looking at, right? Like it's still Paul was doing great things, but just at a little bit of a slower clip. The worst game he had was like the start off the year and on the Vulcan. It didn't really work. They kept going back to it. Ever since then, he's looked good. Him and Sam and Belair have all looked great. Neil Ma has looked great. I really think, as much credit as I give Zap and Belair, I do think that those are still the places where I would look at for upgrades. Unless you have like adapting wanting to be your jungle. And then I'd be like, okay, maybe we, trade out Sam for adapting. I might do that. But even with with Zapman, he was one of the big reasons they beat Dig those 2 games was because he was just stomping Ataraxia, right? And so Zapman still has that in him, but he also is the guy who can feed 13 times. Like he can just go int, right? That's still in his repertoire. And I think if you were to add somebody onto that team who had just a little bit more leadership and shot calling out of I don't know. We're getting off on a tangent with like the SK, but I think adding Baskin over Belair definitely is an improvement for that squad. I don't think you put him mid. The Baskin tax for that team would be too strong in mid. You're not familiar with the Baskin tax. The Baskin tax is all of the farm flows through Baskin. You only get scraps that he deems you are worthy for when you're worthy for them. It's a double-edged sword because Baskin gets fed as fuck and can do whatever he wants, but then your jungler is down 4 levels because he can't get anything. And so that's the problem. That's the disconnect. SSG ran into it. United last year ran into it to a lesser degree, but the Baskin tax is real. And so I don't think him in mid works anymore just because of that. The play style is different. Even where there's too much focus on the 3v3 right now to deny farm like that. I don't know. Maybe it could work right now. I don't think so. I think you want him definitely in the solo lane. And I'm looking at the landscape. SK gives Baskin the best chance to come in and start winning. Unless you're looking at, the only other team maybe would be E United maybe. And even then I'm not like sold on that.
Yeah. Again, all the other top 5 teams are at this point are too comfortable where they are to probably make that like drastic roster changes. SK makes sense. I personally would not swap Belair out, but that's because I've grown a fondness toward Belair and his playstyle. I think even when SK was struggling when they first started the season, he was one of the shining performances, especially when Camazotz first came into the meta to counter King Arthur. He was that guy where you gave him Camazotz and it was game over in solo lane wherever he was playing against. So, but I get it from a managerial perspective. If you want to start winning now, and you think that's where the upgrade comes from, and you're SK and you want to break into that top 4, not just be top 6, then yes, I think that's a quality move. I just wouldn't be the guy to pull the trigger. That's all. But that's why my name will never be remembered.
Yeah.
So, so
I'm just looking at the other solo laners. If you're trying to replace somebody with Baskin, you're not going to replace Benji. Benji's a world champion. You're not going to replace Aquarius. He's been doing too well. You're not replacing Fine OK. You're not placing Variety. The only one who really stands a chance of getting replaced is Belair, as unfortunate as that would be for him. I don't know. We'll be monitoring the situation. Again, this is all hypothetical. This is just based off of the fact that Baskin was not playing in the Smite minor league this week, and Solar
don't you just love Roster Mania?
Roster Mania is it's a hell of a drug. I think we talked. Yeah, so Cryptic and Sanguine played. Sanguine lost out. Armada played. Armada won. Big surprises there, everybody. They 2-0 SSG Gold. Who would have thunk it? And that's kind of it for our talk for the SML. We don't have last week SPL to cover because we covered it on Friday. We did the good job. We don't have anything to talk about there. But so this entire show, since we're on Wednesday before the games, we're going to all just speculate about what's going on. We look ahead. We only have 2 games. We got Thursday, we got Friday, and that's it. We had some stuff get rescheduled again. So our Thursday game is going to be Team Rival versus SK. Should be a good set. What are your first thoughts on this game?
First thoughts, Rival 2-1. Just flat out reaction. I think that SK is good enough to keep it a close series, but I think Team Rival have
2-1 or
that they're a
3-1?
top 3 team. 3-1, my bad. Best of 5. 3-1. 3-1. Well, actually, no. Now that's I want it to be basically go full 5, full 3, full 5. So 3-2, because I think SK can take them the distance, but Rival have proven they're a top 3 team. I just think they're too good to give the series over to SK and lose, and I think they take that one hands down.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to see past the powerhouse that Rival has been. SK has been strong. They almost took games off a dig. They almost took a set off a dig, and they get beat out by Renegades. It's hard to place who's going to win out. Rivals kind of hasn't played in a bit, and SK has had a lot of time to practice. So there's not like a lot of film on either one of these teams. The last time SK played was 2 weeks ago against Renegades. So they have a little bit more film on them more recently. Oh no, a Rival played Luminosity, but anyway, what good is that film? It's Luminosity Rival. So you get a little bit. So both of these teams don't have the Rival has the advantage here because SK has had bigger sets closer to this current day. So just based off of being able to game plan, I put Rival ahead there. On paper, Rival is the better team 9 days out of 10. SK could come out and surprise people, could find a win here. They have been getting better and better and better every week. I think that they could, if they're firing on all cylinders, come out and I think they could take Rival to 5 games and then the last game kind of be 50-50. But I also see Rival being able to get a 3-1 here. I don't quite see them getting a 3-0. They could do it. I don't know. That would be something special for me for Team Rival to get the 3-0 here. But I'm right there with you. I think Rival is just the better team right now, and I think SK would have to have a great day, and Rival would have to just have an okay day to a bad day for SK to get the win here. There's just so much talent on the Rival roster versus SK at this moment, and Rival Rival to me is either the best team in the world or the second best team in the world, depending on the day. It's really hard to tell. I really wish we were getting another Rival Dignitas game before the end of the season, but unfortunately, we're just not going to get that.
It would have had to been the same. It had to be the same conditions as when SK took Dig to 5 games, which is basically Zapman pops off, just has a hell of a day, and you're right. Rival just plays okay. People aren't doing what they usually do. Captain Twig isn't it. They just have to play mediocre, and SK would have to be on their best behavior, and you can't do that twice.
I don't think SK match up that well with Rival, to be honest. SK gets a lot of their stuff comes from early game aggression and then ramping that up. It's going to be Zapman versus Arkle, right? I don't think that really favors Zapman that much. I think Arkle has been the better ADC there. Zapman's going to try to be aggressive, but Arkle has been really good at negating that. What's really going to be interesting to me is Panda versus Paul in that mid lane. They've both been really aggressive, all in your face. They both kind of favor the all in play style, and that should get a lot of highlight plays. We're in a solid 3v3 meta. You know, your support, mid, and jungle fighting in that mid lane a lot of the time. So we're gonna see a lot of Neil, Paul, and Sam fighting against Twig, Panda, and Polar Bear Mike. That should go the way of Rival almost every time. Where I see this going towards SK might be just the experience difference for Paul and Panda in the mid role, but Panda's kind of proven to everybody that he has what it takes to be, you know, a world-class mid laner. So it's hard to say. I'm looking forward to Belair Final K. This will probably be one of the premier matchups for Belair to prove himself that he should not be replaced by Baskin. Or maybe we see Baskin tomorrow. Maybe we see Baskin to start this game. That would change this game up completely. I think if Baskin shows up tomorrow, this is a 3-0 for SK.
But oh my God. If he walked in WWE style to the studio, just like, I'm here. Start playing his own theme.
Baskin's music.
First of all, I'd be elated. I'd be like, okay, this is gonna be a great series. Then I actually might flip and be like, okay, SK might have a chance to win this. And it's just he, like you said, he brings so much more to the table than Belair, just not only to the soul lane, but just to the team as a whole. Honestly, right. It's interesting you brought up the mid lane matchup because you're right. Paul has more experience in the mid lane than Panicat, but I swear to God, if they pull out Vulcan for Paul or some shit and they let Panicat have mid AMC, and it's really hard to pin down Panda because he has the blessing of being like, hey, well, you know, I used to play Hunter. I used to be AD carry. So if I don't play mage as well, I can just switch over to an AMC mid, Uller mid, Chronos, AMC something that makes
really
me
fucking strong right now too. Yeah.
The
double carry meta really favors Rival right now, how good Panda can be on those Hunters, the carries. AMC is just ridiculous right now. That Stinger is no fucking joke. And you put that on Panda, you put, you know, Chronos or Freya or Soul on Arkle, and then you put PBM on Fafnir. It's a day. It's a wrap. That is like the comfort picks all around. Easy dub. So I'm really looking forward to that set, though. All things considered, I think we should get a good game out of that. We should get some good strats. That's what I'm really. One of these teams is going to pull off something really funky in this set, and I can't wait to see it. Next day, our last game, Friday, is going to be Splyce and Space Station Gaming. This will be a very interesting set. There's a little bit of bad blood between these two squads with Sino jumping ship from Space Station. Well, Sino jumping ship from Splyce to Space Station, and then Veninu jumping ship from Space Station to Splyce. Really interested to see what both sides have been doing. They've had, you know, some significant time off here, since they made these roster moves. we're going to see Andy Minigan and how Sino Jungle can transform this team. They've also got the benefit of having Alpha Jackal with them through I think it's like 2 or 3 weeks they've had off now. But really the game plan to watch everybody else. If you're space station gaming, you don't like this because you'd rather play somebody who's played more recently so you can utilize the game planning that Alpha Jackal and a coach can give you. Splyce, on that regard, I think have the edge. It'll be awkward for them as well. You know, they have Venenu in that mid role and Scream in the jungle. And if they, on papers, this is probably Splyce's game, but don't count SSG out either. I'm really curious to see what Alpha Jackal has done with the squad. And it's really hard for me to say believe in the space station gaming after all of like the downhill stuff they've had. And then Andy going mid. I really don't like Andy mid. I really don't think it's going to work. His god pool is more limited than Zero's, and he doesn't play any of the gods he can play as well as Zero's does. So what are you doing? I'll make a bet right now. At least one of the games we see out of this SSG Splyce matchup is going to be raw mid. I 100% guarantee you that. And I think Splyce is just going to be able to abuse that. They're gonna pick like a Fenrir or something. They're gonna put something that just gets to the backline. A Fenrir, a Rob, a Neja. They're gonna do something to get to the backline and just kill Andy repeatedly. LG is kill Kiki repeatedly. For SSG is gonna kill Andy on cooldown, and that's I guarantee you it's gonna happen. I just don't see it happening any other way. How do you see this breaking down?
Yeah, there's gonna be way too many fires for Sinnoh to have to put out in this one. I think it doesn't even come down. I don't even know if having Alpha Jackal there, maybe it'll help out a little bit. But like you said, there's not any recent tape, so how much can you really game plan? How many curveballs can you really throw? Because right now I look across all the lanes, and besides the jungle, and even jungle, it's not like Sinnoh is objectively better than Scream. They're pretty close. Everywhere else is Splyce oriented. You know, it's space station. It's not looking too good. Venenu, I'm not gonna say he's gonna get his revenge because I don't think anything like negative happened in the space station house. You know, moves had to be made, but I just think that Splyce takes this one 3-1. I think Sinnoh might have himself a game just so he can get a little bit of revenge and carry them to a win. But besides that, there's not much Space Station has that can hold up to the Splyce squad, just objectively. I mean, even in a dual lane, which is kind of their big ticket item, I think that Cyclone and Aurora are just better than Jeff and Barra. And when your big ticket item can't play that well, Sinnoh's too new still. He can't carry you that hard. What else can you do? You can't rely on Andenster. Can't really rely on Aquarius, even though, like I said, he's good, but he's not that carry soul in that can just take over games for you. So, Space Day, this is an L. It's just chalk it up to an L right now. It's gonna be okay, boys.
I'm trying. You've got Sino going over to SSG, and Sino was a decent chunk and reason why they won Worlds off his Neja. Divios was the real biggest reason in that like Worlds run. I think he should have won MVP. But the flashy Neja, Sino, like undefeated Neja is pretty impressive too. Sino understands what makes Splyce work, right? The clown fiesta that they do to minimize what you can get off of their mistakes, everything like that. So bringing that knowledge to Alpha Jackal, who played against Splyce in the World Finals, combining that knowledge from both sides, you're going to learn. There's going to be a lot of intel about this Splyce squad, which could be exploited. I don't think Cyclone is the best ADC out there. I think Bear is a better ADC. Aurora, and to Jeff, Aurora has been the better aggressive support for a while. But Jeff has had his moments this season. I think he's probably past his prime, but that doesn't mean he can't, have his 50-point game. He can't go out on the 61-point game like Kobe, right? It's still in his system. He still got it. He's gonna hurt in the day after, but he could do it. You've got a lot. There's a lot of potential. I'm gonna take the other side on this. If Andy can play well in the mid lane, I think this goes to SSG. I think SSG can win this set off of good mid play from Andy. He's gonna play raw. You know that if it's open, they're gonna play, and they're gonna leave it open because they think they're gonna punish it. We're entering into that kind of healer meta. Raw kind of fits in on that. You pick an Erlang jungle. You have the pin and the ult, the taunt to set up for Andy to hit the raw snipes or the raw ones or whatever. And that, a couple critical points in that 3v3 fight, that could be really impactful. I'm gonna trust Alpha Jackal knows what he's doing and has worked with these boys. And I'm gonna say that SSG win this 3-2. I think this will be a 3-2 for SSG. I think it'll go 5 games. You know what? No. I think it'll be a 3-1 for SSG. I think SSG's showing up. I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna call it.
Yeah, all right, Galaxy. I mean, the conditions. These conditions
SSG's
need to be met. I think I'll play along with you for a bit. I'm in a world where SSG has a chance to win. The condition have to be met that in a 3v3 meta, I think that the SSG 3v3 have to do their best to minimize the impact of Splyce's 3. I think Sinnoh, if he assists Aninster mid, keeps Venenu down so that not that Aninster's going to pop off and carry the game, but so that Venenu can't get a lead and then can't rotate, can't find priority. I think Aquarius, I think that he'll be fine against Divios, to be honest. I don't think that Divios will run that lane. And then as long as either Jeff can match or they can put down enough vision to see where Aurora is going on the roams and they don't give him Hercules, then there may be a world. There may be a world where they can do this. But that's a lot of work for a team that hasn't played in a minute in the studio.
I think.
And
yeah.
I
think that's where I'm putting the onus onto Alpha Jackal. This SSG squad hasn't had a coach of his caliber, of his level in a minute. They had Dimmy, but Dimmy wasn't really a world-class coach. At that point, he improved them. Alpha Jackal's been to back-to-back world final. He's taken a team and really stuck with them, and played to their strengths and found their weaknesses and tried to mitigate them and everything. And I think the last thing I want to see, but the thing that I think SSG need to do tomorrow, is play their game. And it kind of sucks because I've been harping on them all year about them being what's wrong in Smite, being traditional Smite. They don't find their own meta. They don't do all that. But I think we're in week 11, right? There's enough tape. There's enough scrim time. The current meta has been drawn in the sand, and that's going to give SSG time to figure out what the meta is, how to play, how to adapt, everything like that. So unless Splyce come in playing something completely different than everybody else, they're going to be on the same even footing. And that might favor SSG. I don't know. I want to see Jeff maybe on Sylvanas, maybe on the Fafnir. Like I said, we know that he's going to be on the Raw, and then the Erlang or the Neja on the Sino. Either or, I'd be perfectly happy with the 3v3 with the 3v3 fights and tight quarter fights. Having a Fafnir or a Sylvanas coupled with the Neja can do a lot of damage. You've got the sash, you've got the ring bounce, which can hit a lot of targets. You combine that with raw snipes on the Sylvanas. I think that core could work really well. And I think SSG have a more defined core play style in that regard than what Splyce will have right now. Because Scream plays a little bit more out there. Vin is kind of really malleable in that mid role, and Aurora's going to press W at you. And so I don't know that they're all going to be on the same page. SSG will be on the same page. That is the one thing that I can tell you about those guys and how they play and with their coach. They're going to be on the same page and play style and how they approach the game. I don't know that Veninu approaches the game in the same way that Roar and Scream do. Scream and Roar are both pretty aggressive guys. Veninu has not always been the most aggressive guy, so that could cause some problems. I have made myself excited to watch this set. I wasn't initially, but I have talked myself into genuinely believing that this is SSG set to win.
You know what?
I'm actually excited to be right.
I'll say this. If Alpha Jackal pulls out the Amaterasu on Aquarius, they win. Easy dub. Easy dubs. Because recently got a buff that lowered a lot of her cooldowns, has a lot of safety with her dash, and on the ulti, hit that third base attack, it's a stun. Add another stun to set up the raw ultimate. At the same time, she can build and do pretty good damage. So it's not like you're just building a stun bot. She can actually contribute to fights. And if he can just survive in lane with Divios, get to that midpoint where the fighting and all the chaos, I feel like Amaterasu thrives in chaos. And she'll just assault your back line, and she can set up everything for your team. But that's just me. I'm not a Amaterasu fan, or she's not my favorite soul lane or anything. But I'm just saying. I'm surprised we haven't seen it yet. I think we've seen it in SML. I think we saw it in SML, maybe. And it actually played pretty well. I have to go back. If it was an SCL, then disregard everything I said about where it's played.
This is your youth showing. You see buffs to Amaterasu, and you see her in the solo lane. I see buffs to Amaterasu, and I see her in the support role.
Oh.
Ama support has been a thing we've seen run back, and it doesn't exactly fit with Jeff's style. Jeff is a traditional Guardian guy. Aurora, on the other hand, Aurora on Amaterasu could be very problematic for teams to deal with. So if anybody's going to play Amaterasu, I think on the other side, Coach Kabam for Splyce has already seen that, is going to be looking at that, and is going to target that. I don't know the almost that just happened this patch.
Yes,
or it was patch.
I think it was this patch.
If it was this patch, then that won't be in the Pro League till like next week or next patch. I think the SPL plays a patch behind. So I don't think we'll see the AMA. I think we'll see Afro instead. Afro got the changes in the buffs, and I think that's the patch they're playing on. Those added. So I don't know. We'll still have to wait a little bit. You know, I think we might be. You know, we still got a couple weeks left in the season. On Pittsburgh Knights. Emilzi's going to play AMA support if it's viable. So we'll figure out if it's viable when he comes up and steps up to the plate. So at the end of the day, so what are you changing your mind? Have I swayed you with my knowledge? Or are you still?
No, I'm not.
All right, I respect it. We're split down the middle here. I'm really excited to see who comes out on top in that game. Next week, though, the week 12 matches, there is a Monday match. So we're going to talk about that as well, since that'll happen before our next show. The Monday match is going to be Splyce and Renegade. Renegade started off really hot. They managed to get the 3-2 over Dig. Hurry probably had his worst game of the season that set. Disappointing, but Dig did finally fall. Then Renegades, fresh off their conquest of Dig, play Pittsburgh Knights and get 3-0'd. Are Renegades the team that gets 3-0'd from Pittsburgh Knights, or are they the team that 3-2s Dignitas? That's a good question. What is their actual place in the
After
Smite world.
after hearing and watching what everyone's been saying and how the consensus is that Dignitas was just having a bad day that series, I feel like they're the team that gets thrilled by the Pittsburgh Knights, honestly. I mean, what they did, again, we talked about it last podcast. The style they play, how they play is very linear because of how late they had to come in. They revolve around certain teammates. They're not very flexible. And truly, if it was just Dig having a bad day, Herwin having a bad series, not playing that well, then I think Pittsburgh Knights is a red flag of, hey, this Renegade squad, they came out hot, but it might have just been a fluke, might have been a little bit of a flash in the pan, and teams are starting to bring them back down to earth. So if it has any bearing on this series, I think that they still take it. I just want to believe in them so much. I want to believe in Viva La Visa, but it's going to be close.
I don't know. I don't know that I can say that they are the team that gets 3-0'd by PK over the team that 3-2's Dig. Dig did have a bad game, but even still, they were able to take them to 5 games, beat them, and that's something that everyone else hasn't been able to do. They exploited a lot of what their weakness is. I think Renegades can be a contender in this league. I think they should have won a game, maybe 2 in that Pittsburgh Knights set. They just got unlucky with how a couple things broke. And the fatigue of playing as well was something that really kind of hit them as well, just because of playing so many games in a short amount of time and scrimming. And there's just a lot of stuff that goes on. And PK had been off for a bit, and they didn't have great footage to go in on them. It's kind of worthless at that point. So all that combined, I think PK's gotten better since they last played, and the meta's kind of shifted a little bit since they last played. So you don't have as much prep. Renegades and the Splyce will be really interesting because these are 2 teams that are very flexible in what they play. They have a lot of wild different starts that they can pull. This is a team. These are both 2 teams that stray from the standard path, and we could get a lot of weird stuff in this set. Obviously, how the SSG Splyce game goes will give us a little bit more info onto how the Renegade set will go. If I'm just basing it off of what I've seen Splyce do and what I've seen Renegades do, I think that Renegades is a stronger roster than Splyce. I expect it to be a 3-1 or a 3-2 for Renegades, just based off of play style, and the Renegades able to control the pace of the game and the team fighting and everything like that a little bit better than what Splyce is going to be able
to bring. Agreed. I didn't say that they were going to lose.
You didn't. You didn't.
I didn't. So there you go. Damn right there. And honestly, it's interesting that you dove a little bit deeper into the Dig series, because it raised a question in my mind that split second. It was like, well, if Renegades, and not to say that they can't beat Splyce, they can't be at least the middle of the pack team and be a strong contender, but if they were like a strong team, like people were kind of hyping them up to be after they started the way they did, finally playing, then against the struggling Dig, should it have gone 3-2 or should it have been 3-1 against the struggling Dignitas?
I think Hurry really only struggled in a couple key games, and the worst game of the set was unfortunately the last one. He just didn't look very well, and so Dig across the set wasn't at their best, but they collectively across the set, it was only really the last game that really had anything that was worrisome, and that was just Hurry genuinely had a bad day that last game. And I think I can kind of hand wave a little bit, and I don't. It doesn't affect my opinion of Dig. I still think Dig is the best team in the world. Maybe that changes with rivals games, and seeing them play. But we're kind of getting back to the point maybe where back in the day we had Obey, NRG, Dig, and Rival all playing each other, and they could take games off of one another, but they couldn't beat other teams. So we could be seeing the top 4 get into that as well. Whereas PK can beat Renegades, but can't beat Dig. But Renegades can beat Dig, but can't beat PK. And then Rivals also taking games off of PK, and there's there's a lot of ways that breaks down, right? And we've seen that in the past with these top teams. It's just a matchup based thing. Uh, and I think after this game, the Splyce Renegades will really figure out where Renegades is on that list. If they are the fourth, if they're in the top four, or if they are in that SK United area, the top mid card. I want to see them succeed. I also kind of want to see Splyce succeed at the same time. Aurora is probably one of my favorite players in the league. I know Renegades though. Funball's my boy. Me and him. We go back. So just based off of sheer fanboyness, I got to root for the Viva La Visa every time. But I'll be watching that pretty closely. I think that's going to be a really good set. Based on the games we've talked about so far, what's going to be your set of the week between Thursday, Friday, and Monday?
Honestly, gosh, I can't say the third one because the third one kind of depends on if Splyce wins. Otherwise, if Splyce were to win, I'd be like, okay, Splyce Renegades, that's pretty much a cornerstone point for both teams. You're like, where are you in the standings? Are you one of those top of the card teams, or are you kind of middle of the pack, bottom rung? I want to say Rival SK, but Rival's so good that unless SK can do something crazy, I don't think it's going to be too close of a series. I'm going to say actually Splyce Space Station Gaming, just because of the storylines and the narrative going into it. How close it could potentially be. I want to see if it's going to be a messy game or it's going to be clean from both sides. Just good smiters going to just be all over the place, mistakes, sloppiness, and whoever just comes out on top of the bloody hill of bodies wins. I think that's going to be the one to watch.
Yeah, I don't know. I still, as much as I've hyped up Splyce Space Station for myself and for you, apparently, I still think I think Rival SK is going to be the game where we learn a lot about where SK is, where if Rival come out here and just dominate 3-0 SK, Rival might be the best team in the world. I've been saying Dig's the best team, and then Rival's a very close second. But if Rival comes out here and 3-0s in a dominant way over this SK squad, I can't look at anything else and say that Rival isn't the best team. They've got a strong squad. They've been getting stronger as they've grown together. Fino K is having his best season, which is a nuts statement to say for a man who's had amazing season after amazing season. You got to mitigate. You're not going to stop him. You just have to prevent him from doing as much. It's crazy. That Rival roster is really looking strong. I like it. I think everybody kind of synergizes with everybody, and SK still has youth out of their 3v3, and that's going to cause some problems. And then I don't know that Zatman's in his prime. I don't. We're gonna learn a lot about a lot of things this week. This is the learning week. Is Rival the best team? Is SK better than we've been placing them? Is Space Station a real Smite team yet? I don't know. We're gonna figure these things out together as we watch. And is Splyce, an actual world championship contender? If they go into this week and drop a game to if they drop the set to SSG, and then they drop the set to Renegades, maybe we are looking at a roster change for Splyce and coming after that. I don't know. That would be devastating to Splyce's, world run. That would be devastating for this team going forward. And I don't know that team could survive it at this point based off of, we've heard rumors the toxicity in the team environment and everything like that. So you add 2 losses, one to SSG, which, on paper, they're going to be like, that's an easy blow off game. I don't know. I worry for the future of Splyce if they lose this week, but I kind of want them to lose this week. I'm all for Team Chaos.
This week, on top of that, there's the added foreshadowing. I feel like we've produced this hype where it's like these three teams, SK, Splyce, SSG, we targeted these as some of the most likely places where Baskin could end up. And it's like, it's the foreshadowing of if they have a bad week, is that where Baskin goes? Or is this where Baskin goes? We don't know. We have to see who.
I think Baskin is showing up somewhere. 100. So we've seen this in the past where guys who are coming up to the SPL, if they're in the SML, don't play in the SML that week. So I 100% expect Baskin to be somewhere. I don't think he just took a game off and was like had their sub played. That isn't fit, right? That'd be too coincidental.
Right.
You know, Baskin's gonna show up somewhere this week. Where that is, nobody knows. We haven't heard any announcements or anything. So that'll be where he goes will be really telling as well. If it's SK, if it's SSG, if it's I mean,
he holds all the chips in his hands. Like I can imagine a scenario where he has 3 different contracts sitting in front of him. He's like, I'm gonna be watching this week, and whoever does the best, I'm signing that contract because everyone wants him.
We might not know where he goes. If it's not going to be rival. But it could be SK. I guess it could be Splyce in a weird world. It could be SSG in a weird world. It's not Renegades, right? So it would. But the next week we've got LG, Trifecta, E United all playing. So if we don't see Baskin this week, we know that it's either Trifecta, Luminosity, or E United that he's going to go to. Well, if we don't see him this week and then all of a sudden he's back in the SML, we're going to look real foolish. But if he doesn't show up in the SML next week after not being in the SPL this week, then we know he's going to the SPL and it'll be one of those teams. There's a lot of layers to this. We're getting into some real like talk radio shit right now. This is like some Stephen A. Smith ESPN type bullshit where we're speculating about speculating on speculations, right? Like this, we're getting into it. We're kind of losing it a little bit here.
What you get when you got me on, man? I'm all about that. That's my little thing. Analyst equals also heavy speculator. Assumptions are always made in this. You know, I mean, maybe if I had that info, but hey, who knows?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens this week, and if we do see Baskin show up, it'll be all the more interesting. I've said interesting way too much today. You ever do that, like where you're talking and all of a sudden you're like, why am I saying this word 47 times?
My crutch word is indeed. When I cast, I'll sit there start. Well, indeed, yes, you're right. And it'll bug the hell out of me. So I get it. It's awful.
Yeah, being a caster and stuff like that, because you always figure out what your go-to words are, and then you'll fix that, and then you'll get a new go-to word as you're trying to move away from that. And you're like,
and it's even worse when the people that are listening to the cast know it's your crutch word. It's like he's said indeed a lot. Why does he keep saying that? Like what? And then, oh man,
because Chad will always hear it before you do.
I love you, chat. Stay humble.
You know, chat's all right. I don't want to say I love chat. My love is conditional, and I don't think chat's earned my love at this stage yet.
Oof! Wow, wow.
Yeah, I'm a hard man to please. I come out, you know, I do my job, and I expect excellence from those around me to earn my love. Just ask my Smite kids. It took me a long time to love them. On that note, I think we're kind of petering out on the things we can talk about. We talked about SML. You know, we've got those teams who have qualified into the MSI. We're still looking at who's going to qualify from the SPL. Obviously, Dig's already there. Dig, Rival, PK, all teams that are already there. Splyce and Renegades, SK, and E United still kind of in the hunt and looking to contend for that. We don't really know which way it's going to break. There's still a lot to play for in these last couple weeks, and that's always good, right? When you have stuff to play for all the way to the end, that's always the best Smite in any game to watch. So here's hoping that things kind of stay close and we get a little chaos thrown in the mix. Maybe yes, everybody out there is an SSG fanboy at heart in some way, shape, or form. So hopefully we give those fans a little bit to be happy about finally after having just an awful year to start off. That's it for me. Culture. You got anything you want to talk about before we send it off?
Just finish the speculation hype train. If Baskin show up this week and he doesn't show up, and he shows up next week, he's going to Trifecta Luminosity. We don't know yet. Blah. And then also, Amaterasu, not cooldown. It's damage buffs to her ultimate. Either way, next week I expect to see her. That's it. That's all. That's all I got.
All right. Keep your eyes out in the casual games for that Alma with the buff. And we will see you next time around the Battleground. Goodbye, everybody.